You're going to showboat, knock down the shot.
For what his value is, it doesn't equate to winning basketball.
When you're talking about the greatest of greats, that's what you have to do. You have to nitpick.
We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the TM Up podcast. I'm Jace Eustace, joined, as always, by my partner here, Jarrett Huff. Jarrett, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good, but Jace, I have to ask, because we haven't really talked since the end of the last series. How are you doing, man? Are you okay?
I'm hanging in there. You know, it was obviously a rough go of it. We got, pretty much for the majority of that game, I didn't have much hope as far as when Game 7 went, but then there towards the end, obviously they started pulling closer. I was like, okay, hold on. We have a chance. And then, Jimmy Butler tried to play hero and he came up a little bit short there, but I'm all right, for a team that a lot of people really didn't expect to go very far, even going into the playoffs, being the number one overall seed. No one really picked them. A lot of them even didn't pick to get past the second round with the 76ers, obviously did that, and then we're able to push Boston to a Game 7 and almost steal that Game 7 win from Boston to advance to their second finals in 3 years. So I'm all right. It's not over for Miami. They'll be back, and they'll be back hopefully better than ever.
So I want to ask you this because it's been kind of a topic of controversy after the game. How do you feel about Jimmy Butler's last shot?
I was okay with that. I was okay with the shot. In the moment, if you would ask me that question 10 minutes after the game, I would have said, Jimmy, you have to drive that on Al Horford. You're either going to get probably a made layup or you're going to get fouled. But now that it's been able to marinate a little bit, I'm okay with the decision he made. And I think part of the decision came into he had to kind of decide, do I want to go for the win or do I want to go for the tie? Because if you go for the 2 and you get those 2 points, odds are, the Celtics are going to hold for the last shot. So either the Celtics are going to win on a last shot or Miami, or you're going to go to overtime. Jimmy Butler, who played 48 minutes and was for the majority of that game the sole offense for Miami, he knew that they weren't going to be able to compete in an overtime series, and he had to, in that situation, make the choice to go for the win. And I'm okay with that. I do think the other kind of controversial thing, I think they should not have been able to change that Strus call, 6 possessions later, because I think that really changes a lot of things. I think Miami, doesn't take a timeout, or they're able to take a timeout. I think it kind of changes things down the stretch. Obviously, it's easy to say that's 3 points taken away from Miami. They end up losing by 2, so it makes a huge difference. But, kind of butterfly effect, things are played differently, if that 3 counts. But all of a sudden, that 3 stays and it's a 7-point game. Miami's pushing back in the third quarter. Then all of a sudden they take it away, and then it's 10 points, then it's 12 points. So it's a huge swing of things. I just don't think the NBA and those refs should be able to, 6 possessions later, be able to take a 3 off the board. I felt like that was a real momentum change. And to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure Strus was even out of bounds. I thought his heels were kind of hovering above the line. And I think that 3 should have just stood. I don't think, I don't think people would be arguing on the other side if, that 3 shouldn't have counted. I think it should have just stayed as is. And we should have played the game from there. But, you can't live on those things. You got to continue to push forward. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Like, it's one thing where if there's a toe on a line during a 3-pointer and they change it from a 3 to a 2 after like a possession or 2, but I don't think I've ever seen a situation where they like take away points because they considered him out of bounds like 6 possessions later. Like, that's crazy. Exactly. I've never seen something like that in my life. I didn't even think they could.
Well, and they said it on the broadcast too. They just come back from a commercial and they're like, yeah, that's Strus 3. And I'm trying to think of when did Strus make that last 3? It was like a minute and a half ago, like game time. Like, that is such a swing in momentum that it's hard to do. And Miami starting to push back. Obviously, Boston kind of kept them at 10 points for most of the game. That 3 cuts it to 7. All of a sudden, Miami's got the momentum going in the direction. And then after, a commercial break, it's gone. And I think that sucks. I don't want to see that become part of the NBA, where you can just go back and change these things. So if anything, I'm more upset about the Strus call than I am about Jimmy Butler taking that 3. I can live with Jimmy Butler trying to go for the win on that.
For the record, I was all for that Jimmy Butler shot. He's the man. He's got to take it. The man played 48 minutes. He does not want to see overtime because I can't imagine him making through that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and Jimmy Butler, obviously, he's not a great three-point shooter, but in the playoffs, he's been a better three-point shooter than he
And
was in the
he's always
regular
been
season.
clutch.
Exactly.
He's got the clutch gene. I mean,
If
I saw him in
anybody, yeah.
Chicago
Oh, yeah.
countless times.
If anybody's going to take that shot, it's going to be Jimmy. And I'm going to live with that. I'm going to live and die with playoff Jimmy. And he's the only reason that we were there in the first place. And without him, that series is over in 5, besides the one Bam Adebayo game. So Jimmy Butler, I'm okay with that. I'll live with that, every day. But definitely, man, so Miami obviously didn't get a chance to advance to the NBA Finals. So Boston did. Now, as a lot of you probably know, last night was game 1 of the NBA Finals where Boston stormed back in the fourth quarter, ended up taking a 12-point lead or 12-point win, over the Golden State Warriors to take that one at Golden State. So, Jarrett, how are you feeling? Like game 1, how did this kind of play out? Did you expect this from Boston or what went wrong for the Warriors?
I did not expect this run from Boston because while Boston was going on many runs during the game, Golden State seemed to be able to supplement and sustain their lead, even if it was only by a couple points margin, just based off their 3-point shooting from mainly Stephen Curry, but then other guys here and there. Otto Porter had a really good night for a while. And it blew my mind. Golden State went cold in the fourth quarter. It seems like they couldn't hit a shot. Even Steph Curry, who only hit 1 3 after his 6 3-point first quarter, which was an NBA first quarter finals record, by the way. Golden State just went cold. I couldn't explain it. The Boston started playing their shooters differently, where they had the bigs. When Curry would come up the court, they'd play him a lot farther up instead of kind of dropping back a little bit, which was a change that needed to happen because they were leaving Curry wide open. And Boston was just hitting shots. I mean, that was the difference. Like everyone was hitting shots. Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, who was the hero of the game, which is indisputable. I mean, he hit 8 points down the stretch with like 4 minutes to go. That really opened up the game and kind of made it an insurmountable lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, my kind of takeaway, and this was weird because I was busy last night. I didn't have a chance to kind of watch it live. So I had to go back and kind of look at the play-by-play type thing. And everyone in the media, they're going to overreact to game 1. And it's because the Celtics, took it on the road and they did it in comeback fashion. But this game, to me, I'm going to say it's going to prove to be an anomaly. This game, Boston shot an absurd 41% from the 3-point line as a team. As a team in the regular season or throughout this season, they were a 35% 3-point shooting team. That's going to come back down to earth. Horford and White alone shot 11 for 16 from the 3-point line. They won't do that again. Steph Curry looked good. He looked locked in, and the Warriors got comfortable down the stretch, and they underestimated that fight in Boston. That's not going to happen again under Steve Kerr. So credit where it's due for Boston. They went into Golden State. They stole game 1, which is exactly what they wanted to do. And, it's, to me, the most surprising part is because the Warriors were rested. The Boston Celtics having to come off that game 7 where they almost blew it against Miami. I think a lot of people kind of expected this to be a feel-out game for Boston, kind of a dud, and it proved to be anything but. But this is a great start for Boston. There's a long way to go in this series, and I think everyone in the media is going to overreact. They're gonna hop on that Boston, hype train. But I just think this game is going to be an anomaly. I think no team can sustain that level of shooting in a potential 7-game series where 51% from 3-point line as a team. People are just going to miss shots. And the way, if I'm Boston and I'm trying to look through the kind of excitement of getting game 1, you got to get Jason Tatum going. Because I know obviously your role players picked it up here in game 1, but there's going to be games where you're just going to need your star to go out there and beat the other stars. And if Jason Tatum isn't finding his shots, isn't looking good, isn't doing what he can do on the offensive end, you're going to run into some troubles in the middle of this series. So they got to get Jason Tatum going. Jaylen Brown, he was a perfect doing exactly what he does on the offensive end, but you can't rely on Al Horford and Derek White. I know they're on nice runs, and I know a lot of people in Boston are going to go, but he's Al Horford, and I get that, but you can't rely on him every single night to be the man who's going to be knocking down 6 threes. You got to get Jason Tatum going. It's kind of my reaction from game 1.
Yeah. And now I know there's going to be some people that are going to push back and say, well, another anomaly is Jason Tatum played bad. He was like 3 for 17 at one point. That won't happen again. Okay, maybe not, but I've seen
But
Jason
that has
Tatum.
happened. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen Jason Tatum have a lot of those games. I'm still not super convinced that he is a consistent superstar on a night-to-night basis for that reason, which really helps why Boston has so many role players around him that can take over. Like we saw Al Horford and Derek White, who I think almost combined for 50 points last night.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because Derek White, since having a kid, thinks he's Ray Allen, and he's taking contested. He might be. That 1-3 he had over Curry down the stretch.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah,
that was insane. Curry guarded that pretty well, I thought. But I'm gonna push back on that for people saying that Tatum's gonna come back because, like I said, those Boston role players, they're not all gonna have their best nights every single night. Al Horford probably won't have 26 points again. Derek White is a streaky shooter as they come. He's not going to have insane nights from behind the arc every night. Jaylen Brown, who we've seen, although much better tonight or last night, we've seen him struggle shooting and just holding on to the basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's not going to go on a fourth quarter run like he did every single night. Whereas the Warriors, they have shooters I can trust a lot more. I trust Steph Curry. I trust Steph Curry shooting from 50 feet. Okay, maybe not exactly 50 feet, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Versus like Jason Tatum thinking he's Kobe Bryant taking heavily contested threes at the top of the arc, which I don't, Boston fans, I don't know how you watch that. Like, that's tough to watch. Yeah. It's rough. Also, we've seen Klay Thompson improve since the last series, almost on a game-to-game basis, which I like what I see. He hit some awesome shots last night, too.
He's a threat now, yeah. He's back to being a threat again. You have to pay attention.
And he didn't look too bad defensively. He was it looked like he was moving pretty well. He kind of made it difficult for Jaylen when he was trying to drive. Kind of made him look away from the hoop a couple times. So I like what I'm seeing from the Warriors role players and stars. Now, Draymond Green offensively has to be a lot better. Maybe not take –
it's gonna be more efficient, yeah.
Yeah, because there are a few possessions where he like basically took it full court and would try to go for a layup and just miss. Even though some of the looks were good, he should look for his shooters. He should look for his other guys. He should look for cutting Andrew Wiggins to make plays. Also, again, Andrew Wiggins having a fantastic postseason. That's a guy they're gonna have to watch out for. And honestly, even though in no way, shape, or form he should have ever been an all-star starter. Through especially in the last series, he's kind of validated some of the like, okay, this is why this guy was an all-star because his offensive rebounding and his cutting has been invaluable to this Warriors team.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100% on the Jason Tatum aspect where obviously, yes, he won the Larry Bird, the Eastern Conference Finals award, but it was almost just kind of by default, like he wasn't fantastic throughout that series. He was a good player. So I think with Jason Tatum, you need him to play consistent. We haven't seen him do that yet, especially in the postseason. So I think the Boston fans, great. You got game one. That was your goal. But, be ready because Warriors are going to come back punching, especially in game two. And we've seen, we've seen Boston be on the other end of some 40-point blowouts, and we've seen the Warriors get some 40-point blowouts. So I'm not predicting that by any stretch of the imagination, but just saying you never know how this series is going to swing. And, that being said, I want to kind of look forward to what the rest of the series, what we think, at least what the rest of the series is going to look like. So I know I didn't really have a chance to give out my finals pick, prediction before game one, which I've been doing. We've both been doing throughout the entire postseason, but I still wanted to kind of give out how I think this rest of the series is going to go. And kind of even knowing what I know now after game one, I'm still going to go with a Warriors in 7 pick. That was going to be my pick before game one. You can believe me or you can not believe me, but that was going to be my pick. So I just think the Warriors win this series at home in game 7. I think the Celtics, they're going to cool off from behind the arc. Steve Kerr is going to have his team making the adjustments needed to keep the foot on the gas for a full 48 minutes. And I think the championship pedigree that the Warriors have on that roster, it's going to pay dividends. And let's be honest, we've already seen so far this postseason that the Celtics, they can be a real roller coaster type team. They have one of the highest ceilings in the league, but when they're off, they don't stand a chance. Like when they come out and they're not hitting shots and they don't look locked in on the defensive end, they don't have a shot in the game. They don't seem to really hang around much and then just kind of push back and take a game like they did in game one, which is why I think that game is going to be an anomaly. We saw them almost, they came one Jimmy Butler 3 or one Strus overturned call from blowing the Eastern Conference Finals and not even being in the situation. So I think to kind of think that Boston had this dominant run to the NBA Finals, I think that's a little bit of over-exaggeration, because they had to go through 2 Game 7s just to get there, and credit to them for winning Game 7s. But I just think the Warriors, that pedigree, I don't see them, if this gets to Game 7, I don't see them losing a Game 7 at home again. You know, they did it to LeBron, obviously, in 2016, but I don't see this. I don't see them doing that again.
Yeah. So I did get a chance to get off my finals predictions on TikTok before Game 1 was played. I had Warriors in 6. So if you don't believe me, you're calling bullshit on me, go check our TikTok account at TM Up Pod, because it's there. There's proof.
Yeah,
Look at the timestamp. It was before Game 1.
It was.
So I predicted Warriors in 6, and I was chopping it up with some of the people in the comments, where originally I was going to have Warriors sweep the first 2 games at home, Celtics take Game 3, Warriors come back, take Game 4, Celtics come back, take Game 5, and Warriors take Game 6. Now I'm going to adjust that a little bit. I'm still going strong. I'm still sticking with Warriors in 6. So my thoughts is it's going to be Celtics, Warriors. Celtics still take Game 3 at home. Warriors take Game 4 in Boston, and then Warriors win the next 2.
5 and 6.
And that's series. That's what I'm going with, because the Warriors are going to be like, no, 2-2, no, not going to happen. No Game 7s here. Boston, aside from the Nets series, has not looked consistently spectacular throughout the playoffs. I mean, they've played 2 straight series where it went to Game 7s, where going into the game could have gone either way. And it almost did.
Yeah.
Except for in the case of the Milwaukee series, let's be honest, we don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I didn't see a chance of that.
Was it like a 30-point blowout? I can't even remember. It felt so long ago. But Miami, if that ball goes a little bit farther, a little bit higher, Jimmy Butler is taking the stage in Game 1 in these NBA Finals right now with Miami Heat. I don't trust Boston's role players to be consistent throughout the entire series. I'm predicting there's going to be some games where Marcus Smart just wants to go hero ball, thinking he's the best player on the team, which we see from time to time. He'll kind of forget what his role is with the team as being their star point guard. I'm predicting more turnovers from Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, which has been a consistent problem in this series or in these playoffs. For some reason, Jaylen Brown just does not know how to control a basketball and insist upon dribbling into traffic, which I can't decide what's more infuriating, that or the contested shots that
he
Jason
almost
Tatum
just needs to be. He needs to take the Klay Thompson approach, just be a catch and shoot guy, be a spot up shooter, because he can knock down shots. But I agree with you. This entire postseason run, it seems like every time he's trying to drive to the basket to get a shot, he's getting stripped. Like every time, it seems like.
Yeah, and we saw Brown do that in Game 5 against the Heat, and he went off after struggling in the first half of that game. Like, his catch and shoot ability was fantastic. That's what opened it up for Boston.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think he's gonna, even though he had a good game where he had the ball in his hands a little more in the fourth quarter, I'm expecting the Warriors to adjust to that. I'm expecting them to look at some film, and I mean, we have Gary Payton Jr. Gary Payton the third. No, it's the second.
Is it the second? Okay.
It's the second. Yeah. Because that's what's funny about Gary Payton and naming his kids. He's got a little George Foreman in him. Yeah. There's a Gary Payton Jr. that looks strikingly like his father. I don't know. He never got to a pro basketball level as far as I know. And then there's Gary Payton II, who doesn't look like as much as his father, but plays more like his father, at least defensively. So he's going to be, I think, a very important player in the series. And hey, shout out to Andre Iguodala last night. He looked great.
He got some run last night.
And I think he had 7 or 8 points in 15 minutes or something like that. He hit some big shots too. He hit a 3 in the corner to kind of open up the game for Golden State. I think it was in the third. And that's just a player that's going to really help the Golden State Warriors, because the man has the experience. The Golden State Warriors, why they're going to win in 6 is because they have a bad taste in their mouth from the 2019 finals. Even though they've been here 6 times in 8 years, they're going to play like they have a chip on their shoulder, because Klay Thompson wants to redeem himself. He went out with an ACL tear in that final game. He doesn't want to be remembered for that.
Yeah.
He wants redemption. Steph Curry, you know damn well, even though he's not going to say it, he wants that Finals MVP because he's been passed up 3 times, and he hasn't always played the best in the finals. We're going to see this being the best final series Steph Curry's ever played. Yeah, you can make that argument for sure. And now looking back, I don't know why in the moment I was really okay with Andre Iguodala winning it.
I'll never understand why the reason they gave it to him is they said because he guarded LeBron, but LeBron averaged like 36 points in the series. I'll never understand that. I think Curry was absolutely robbed from that first one. Absolutely.
I think it's more like like, hey, bro, we know you've been through the ringer. Here you go. You had to put up with LeBron on a daily basis, on a nightly basis.
It was just, but that was the narrative. It was. Oh, but he guarded LeBron. He guarded the other best player. And it's like, yeah, but LeBron's, was 36, 9, and 12 in that series. Like, let's calm down. Like, yeah, he guarded him, but how great of a job did he do?
They probably justify it, be like, hey, if it wasn't you, LeBron was just going to get 50.
He probably would have. Like, that's the thing. In that series, definitely, yeah.
Like, if Harrison Barnes is on him the whole time, 50.
Barbecue chicken.
But, yeah. I can't wait for the rest of the series. I'm doubling back down on Warriors in 6.
Yeah, on my Warriors in 7. And we talked a lot about current Warriors players. I want to talk a little bit about a former Warriors player. And a lot of people that have been paying attention to NBA social media have kind of seen the kind of back and forth with that from Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, who's had a lot of free time, obviously been out since round 1. He's had a lot of free time, the man. He's got a lot of activities that he likes to do. Man. He enjoys Twitter, that's what he does. So, Draymond is an NBA player, but he's also a part of the NBA media. So he kind of has that foot in both camps. Draymond kind of basically came out and said that the reason why the reason why Steph Curry does not have an NBA Finals is because he was double teamed 70% more of the time than KD was in those 2 finals that they won together. So KD obviously clapped back and said, hey, that's false. It's all love, whatever. And then last night during the game, when the Boston Celtics were kind of going on their run, we're knocking down everything in sight, he tweets out, that's some high quality basketball that we're seeing right there. So it seemed like a little shade at his former team, but I'm just kind of wondering from your perspective, what do you kind of make of this KD kind of trolling Draymond, but now it's also kind of the entire Warriors, kind of the team.
Well, I think it just shows that Kevin Durant's still kind of bitter over the situation. I mean, you can have as many KD Draymond interviews talking about the situation as you want, but I feel like he's kind of feeling left out on the outside looking in. I was kind of surprised to see him and Draymond going at it a bit because I feel like it kind of showed that there's maybe a little more beef on that plate still. Yeah. It completely hasn't been cleared. As we thought maybe that interview might have suggested when they said hey, well, I wasn't mad at team or Draymond. I was mad at Bob Myers and the owner and Steve Kerr because they screwed up the situation, whatever. Kevin Durant made the bet he's laying in right now. He chose Steph Curry over Kyrie Irving, Kyrie Irving over Steph Curry. Yeah. He got knocked out the first round. He could be, yeah. Swept. I was not expecting because
bye.
I thought the Nets would win in 7, but
yes, you
Celtics are in the finals now, so I know nothing apparently. He's just feeling left out because he could very easily be in this final series right now. He probably could have helped the Warriors make the finals last year because all they would have needed was Steph Curry and Draymond. And it's just he's feeling left out. He's feeling a little hurt, and he's kind of just reveling in the Warriors' struggles in game 1. So yeah, I'm not putting much on it. It's like, Katie, you're on the Nets now, and that's your choice. And we know you're not talking to the Nets management right now because you realize, I'm kind of screwed up because this whole Kyrie thing's gone off the rails. And, we had James Harden a couple months ago, and he left town too. So don't feel bad for KD.
I've made my thoughts on KD very clear in the past. And I think this kind of whole back and forth with him and Draymond is kind of what's to be expected. Obviously, when you kind of bring, I guess, into question his 2 NBA finals and say that, Steph Curry would have gotten them if the double teams were even and blah, blah, blah. But we know KD is a man. He consumes NBA media. He understands narratives, and he's not afraid to say what he thinks is right in any situation. And look, I did not originally like his decision to go to Golden State. I thought it was an easy way out, but that's what he wanted to do. But once it's all said and done, I think the decision he then made to leave Golden State after all this success might actually be worse for his legacy. Because, like you touched on it, he left an amazing culture, an amazing team, a great coach, and one of the best front offices, if not the best front office in the NBA for Kyrie Irving and Steve Nash. And now we're 3 years in, and what do you have to show for it? And I agree he's feeling left out, but I have no pity for Kevin Durant, who he made this decision. He chose to leave Golden State.
Careful, bro. He's going to tweet at you.
That's fine. I get that he had an argument with Draymond Green, and I get that, sometimes you want to play where you think you want to be happy in. But at the same time, you can't then turn around and try to complain about the accolades when you're no longer getting any because your team is getting swept out in the first round. Like, you're showing up having a cup of coffee and you're gone. Like, that's what the Brooklyn Nets are right now. And I get it. You wanted to play with your best friend, Kyrie. I get it. You wanted to play with your best friend, DeAndre Jordan. We see how well that's working out for you guys. We see, you guys don't need a head coach. We'll just hire Steve Nash and he'll just kind of be, he's the vibe guy. We'll just make sure we vibe with him. Kyrie after the season, talking about, me and KD, we basically coach the team and blah, 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 blah. You're trying to cut every single corner imaginable, but instead you make the decision to go to Brooklyn so it can be your team. So when you guys win a championship, it's no longer any sort of asterisk and anybody can say anything about it, because that's what you're concerned about, KD. You're concerned about this narrative. That's why you're getting into the fights with Nick Wright over, Twitter when he's talking about, hey, you were the second round pick. You were the second prospect coming out of high school, not second round pick. You were the second overall pick. You were the second prospect coming out of high school. You finished second behind LeBron, and now you're finishing second behind. Like, that's why that bothers you, is because you are narrative driven. So you made this decision that you thought was going to be a narrative choice, went to Brooklyn. So if you guys won a championship, oh, it's KD. KD did everything. But instead you're finding it, hey, it's a little bit harder to win when you don't have a great system and an entire great team around you and a great head coach and a great front office and great facilities and all this. Like, it's not easy. And I think the decision to leave Golden State, I think he regrets it, but he's never going to say it, heck, even 20 years after he retires, I don't think he's going to say that he regrets it. But I think deep down, I think that's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. He's probably trying to figure out, oh, yeah, right. This is the organization that traded for the entire Boston over 35 core. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah. They gave the Boston Celtics Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are now starting in the NBA Finals, who swept you out of the first. It's karma. Like, it's basketball gods. You can't make it up. That's the team that you chose. That's the organization that you chose. And that's the one you're going to live with. And now, there's the rumor up there that the Lakers are going to trade Russell Westbrook back to you and take Kyrie Irving. And who knows what your team's going to look like. Like, that's the situation you put yourself in right now. So I don't know. I don't feel bad for KD. I think it's what's to be expected, though. I just think that's the type of relationship KD has basically with the NBA media and with Draymond. So moving on, I want to talk about something real quick. So the news came out the other day that LeBron has become the first active NBA player to reach that $1 billion mark. So, Jared, I know this has nothing really to do with basketball, but it's kind of more of an off-court thing. But just wondering, when you kind of heard that news, kind of what was your reaction to it?
I wasn't surprised. I was like, oh, it's about time. I figured LeBron would become a billionaire during his NBA career. It's just the way the league's going, especially him being in Los Angeles, all the production companies he's involved in, all his endorsements, the contracts, and et cetera. It just speaks to what we're probably going to see coming down the line with this generation. Now, he may be the only active NBA player to reach this status within the next couple years, because I think some of the other guys are pretty far behind in their overall net worth. But I think this is going to be a trend where we're going to see a lot of billionaires coming out of the NBA, especially from this generation, which will, I think, in my opinion, lead to, we'll start seeing over the next 20 years, a lot of NBA players involved in ownership, which is something we don't see in sports. Michael Jordan, I think, is really the only example of this. And Yeah, like you said, I love it too. Like I could see guys, because we've seen a lot of players kind of follow in LeBron's footsteps. Like Kevin Durant has a couple companies, Steph Curry. There's so many guys, and a lot of these young guys that are coming into the league now are probably going to be some of these future billionaires, because these players are really business minded nowadays, and it's awesome. And this just speaks to the previous generations that kind of paved the way for this to be inevitable. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson made the NBA profitable, saved the NBA. Michael Jordan took it, made it global, helped the salary cap explode. And then LeBron's generation has just increased that and then gone into business ventures. And not to say that the guys beforehand didn't do that. Like Julius Erving was very business minded for his time, and kind of like mentored other superstars on like what you should do and stuff like that. I think it's great for sports. I think it's great for the athletes. And this is the future. We're going to see more business moguls in the NBA because they're more than athletes. They don't just shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
Like these guys are taking what their gifts have given them and they're expanding upon it. So once their career does end, they're set for life.
Oh, yeah.
You won't hear any more Allen Iverson stories.
No. Yeah, this is just another thing that LeBron has done, that kind of no one else in NBA history has ever done. And that list just keeps getting bigger, by the way, but that's another story. This one isn't that big of a deal, obviously, because it's something we all knew that was going to happen at some point. But now, to kind of be up there in that room with other billionaire athletes, it's a great personal accomplishment to me for someone who, came from incredibly humble beginnings and has done nothing, but live up to those expectations since he joined the NBA at 18 years old, regardless of however you feel about anything he's done as far as what teams he's gone to, blah, 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 any of those things. No one can disagree. He's been a great steward for this league. He's done a great job pushing this league forward, growing it, just like you said, like the guys that have come before him, and laying that blueprint, just for people behind him, for these players that are coming up. Maybe don't idolize him as a player, that's fine, but can look at LeBron and it's like, hey, the way he handled himself outside, off the court, the game of basketball, is something that they want to emulate and continue to grow their worth. And just the thing, he gives back too. It's just things like that he's able to do because he's been able to grow that wealth, make smart decisions, and put the right people around him. So just congratulations there for LeBron. But I also want to touch just real quickly too. The Lakers have made their next head coaching decision. They have hired Darvin Ham from the Milwaukee Bucks. And I just want to say I really like this hire for the Lakers, but they have many more problems than just the head coach that they have to get through. I really like, kind of going to a former player who, since his retirement, he's put in the work on the sidelines. He hasn't just been given this opportunity. He's been down there doing the dirty work, and really respect that. I think former players are really having a nice run as head coaches. And, this is a right move after seeing guys like, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, Monty Williams. I'll even throw Steve Nash in there. Just having, some success in this league. Obviously, we're seeing two of them going head to head in the NBA finals right now. So I think Ham will make a really nice head coach, but the Lakers, they need to have a massive roster overhaul in the near future in front of them. But I think this is a good step in the right direction. I think this former player, and especially Ham, I think he's going to have a great opportunity to connect with those players, to connect with them on a player to player type level, get the respect of those guys, and try to get the best that they can out of that roster, regardless of what this roster is going to look like when they open up next season.
Yeah. Shout out to Darvin Ham. It was a long time coming for him to get a head coaching opportunity, but I'm going to pivot a little bit, and I hope the Lakers do right by him.
Yeah.
Because he is in probably one of the most, being the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers is like one of the, probably the most glamorous job in sports. Look at some of the guys that had that job. Phil Jackson, Pat Riley. Come on.
Yeah.
That's a great legacy. But he comes in probably one of the worst situations to be a head coach because they're stuck with a roster with Russell Westbrook, when the only reason why the Lakers are committed to Russell Westbrook is because they're forced to, because no one else wants to take that contract. I'm sorry.
Just one more
year.
And
the uncertainty about LeBron's future there and how long he's going to be there, because he's getting to the end of his career and he's going to go wherever Bronny goes whenever he's able to come into the league, if that happens. The Anthony Davis health situation, which who knows if he's going to be able to rebound and become be able to sustain stretches on the court, which we haven't seen him do in a couple seasons. So I just hope that Darvin Ham is there for the long haul for the Lakers, to where he gets the chance to be a coach whenever the Lakers whenever this era that will inevitably end one way or the other ends. So I just hope the best for Darvin Ham.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think it'll be interesting to see, because this is a situation where they're kind of in the middle. Like, they don't know if they're not a young rebuilding team by any stretch. They're a very old team. In fact, the oldest team in the NBA. And then also, obviously, they missed the playoffs last year. So you can't really bank on, hey, we have playoff aspirations. So you kind of got to walk in there and you got to step in there and walk the line. So I wish him the absolute best. I think he would make a great head coach. And I think I love seeing this kind of run of former players that not necessarily, they're just putting in the work on the sidelines. Jason Kidd, who got to the conference finals, is on his second team. He didn't have as much success with the Milwaukee Bucks, and now he's found a home. Ime Udoka obviously worked with Greg Popovich with the Spurs obviously Steve Kerr worked with the Spurs as well. So, just seeing the success of former players who put in the work is really nice to see. So we're both on the same page. We wish Darvin Ham the best of luck with the Lakers. Now it's time for our favorite segment on the Tee 'em Up podcast, and that is, of course, Tee 'em Up. So, Jarrett, a lot of things going on around the NBA. So who is getting your technical foul this week?
Man, getting my technical foul this week is perhaps you could consider the father of modern sports TV media. I'm teeing up Stephen A. Smith.
Okay.
And here's why. 2 days ago on First Take, he had a take that I think is just freaking ridiculous, to where Kevin Durant tweeted back at him and said, nah, guys like you and Skip Bayless are making the game worse because of your takes. And Kevin Durant might not be wrong there. I'm going to tell you why. Stephen A. Smith and Mad Dog were talking about how potentially Steph Curry changed the NBA for the worse, which there's a fair argument to that. Steph Curry, for his great three-point shooting ability, has had a lot of other coaches and teams be like, we could probably get guys to do that, to the point where for a lot of players, the mid-range game is frowned upon. And we see, and it's been a product in these playoffs, why there's so many blowouts. Well, here's why I'm going to tell you why there are so many blowouts in the NBA today, especially in the playoffs. One team's hot from three. The three-pointer puts teams up quickly. We saw the Boston Celtics pile it on last night. You saw what happened. And then the team trying to catch back up, you know what they're going to do? They're also going to shoot threes. But guess what? This team trying to catch back up, they're not making their threes. And they fall farther and farther behind because they're living and dying by it. So, in my opinion, the argument that Steph Curry has hurt the game is fair. Now, I'm not totally for that, because in some ways he has made the game better. He's accelerated the pace, which for some people, they really like that. Better TV ratings. But Stephen A. Smith said that Michael Jordan made the game worse because Michael Jordan was all about everyone wants to be like Mike. Everyone wants to be that hero ball, no team ball. Here's where you're wrong, Stephen A. Smith. Michael Jordan is the sole reason why the NBA is where it is today. He took what Larry and Magic gave him and globalized the game. Luka Doncic, Dirk Nowitzki, Peja Stojakovic, names like that, they're not in the league today if it's not for Michael Jordan. They were watching the Dream Team and the NBA in the late 90s and the NBA today and Kobe Bryant. Because you know why? The NBA was able to secure TV deals because they had Michael Jordan on every other night, wowing the world. Why do you think there's so many Bulls fans in random places across the country? Why do you think there's a huge market in China? Why is there a huge market in Europe? It's because MJ globalized the game with help of the Dream Team and his spectacular play. MJ didn't make the game worse. LeBron James is a billionaire today because of Michael Jordan, because of what Michael Jordan was able to do for the game. So I'm done with these stupid take shows. Now, anything ever said on First Take should be taken with a grain of salt. Stephen A. Smith, you say Michael Jordan, the greatest player of all time, made the NBA worse, who bought into team-style basketball, by the way, which is why the triangle worked and why he won 6 NBA championships, passing out to Paxson, passing out to Steve Kerr to hit shots because he knew the defense was going to focus in on him. teeing up Stephen A. Smith. Dumb argument. I saw that on my Twitter feed. I'm like, man, you got me out here agreeing with Kevin Durant wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I knew you were going to go that direction, obviously, but
God.
I'm gonna leave that one as is, and I'm gonna move on to mine. This one may be a little stretch. I had a problem kind of coming up with who I was gonna give out my technical foul to until something kind of came back to me. And I'm gonna tee up the NBA social media because I don't have anybody directly to tee up. And for me, it's a video and a comment that went viral. And I'm talking about the video of the Heat walking through the tunnel after Game 7, showing the players, in frustration. And there was a comment that was kind of making fun of Udonis Haslem for being disappointed, even though he doesn't get minutes. And anyone who thought that Udonis didn't have a right to be as upset as Jimmy Butler, who played 48 minutes, and anybody who thought Udonis didn't have kind of that credit to be upset about a Game 7 loss obviously doesn't understand the impact that he has on that team and the important role that he plays throughout this season. UD is as much of a member of that Miami Heat team as anyone else on that roster, and you could argue even more than anybody else on that roster. And it's an absolute shame for his commitment to doing what he can do to help the team be just diminished like that. Like, just because Udonis Haslem is past his playing prime, because he's 41 years old, 42 years old, however old he is basically a player coach, to try to discredit him and his accomplishments and what he means for that team by trying to say, oh, UD's out here acting like he played 40 minutes. What you so upset about? You obviously don't understand basketball. You obviously don't understand the brotherhood that those guys have in that locker room and the absolute respect that the Miami Heat and so many other players around the league have for Udonis Haslem. Because he's more than just a player. He's more than just, the guy on the sideline that's cheering him on. He is a coach. He is a player. He has been there. He has done that. And his value to that team and to that roster is unspoken, and it does not show up in a box score. So to me, this deserves a technical foul to the NBA social media, because I think if you're going to be fans of something, you have to understand the impact that people have beyond just a box score. And Udonis Haslem is one of those guys where he speaks and people listen. And he has just as much of a right to be upset about Miami losing in Game 7 and feel like he had a hard-fought loss than anybody else who played in that game or didn't play in that game. Because that's when it comes to being a team, you're on it together. You win together, you lose together. You celebrate the wins, and, you try to improve from the defeat. So I'm teeing up NBA social media because we got to be better than that, because Udonis deserves better than that. And to me, it was just utter disrespect to try to make those comments about Udonis Haslem. So,
bro, Eric Spoelstra has no reason to be upset about that loss. He didn't play a single minute.
Exactly. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Why would Pat Riley be upset? He didn't play. Like, he's not even the head coach. What do you like? You're all in this together. You're an organization.
Udonis Haslem's been on the Heat longer than the Heat have been without him on a roster.
Exactly.
And that number only climbs season by season. And it's going to take a couple seasons for that number to catch back up.
I think he'll probably come back.
I think he'll be back as a player.
Even though right now he's saying that he doesn't know, I think we will see. It might even be a month before the season, a couple weeks before the season, Udonis signs a 1-year deal on the league minimum. Boom. It happens every year. It's like clockwork at this point.
I mean, shout out to Udonis Haslem. He's the sole example of a point I've been making the last several seasons of why the league's youth movement has been detrimental to a lot of these young stars' development, and probably why we see a lot of young guys hopping from team to team left and right and demanding out of contracts. It's because these locker rooms don't have the OGs. They don't have the guys that have been there before them. This young Memphis Grizzlies team, it's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
But the oldest player on the roster, 30. Steven Adams.
I was about to say Steven Adams.
Yeah. Steven Adams has only been in the league since 2013, which I guess is coming up on 10 years now. He's definitely considered a veteran.
Yeah, yeah.
But back in the NBA, you'd see it'd be abnormal not to have like a couple 35, 36, 37-year-olds on your roster, because these guys help cultivate culture. the Heat culture is not really a joke because they have guys that have bought into the system that are able to integrate incoming players into these cultures. That's why you see some of these super teams break apart so easily, like in the Brooklyn Nets situation. You know why? Because hardly anyone in that locker room has been around more than 2-3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
There's no culture in Brooklyn. It's just a bunch of stars dictating what happens.
Exactly.
The NBA needs more Udonis Haslems.
Oh, exactly.
And I'm going to stick it right there.
And ask any of those players, too. I bet in practice he gives them the work, too. I bet in practice he's still there giving everything his 42-year-old body can possibly give him. And he's probably beating them up on the court, getting them ready for what the NBA is going to be like. Like, Udonis Haslem is, I mean, he is one of the greatest Miami Heat like that has ever existed in my mind. I mean, obviously the numbers aren't there, but Udonis Haslem is Miami. And that's just the way that I look at it. But
born and raised.
Exactly. He is the 305, man. So that's all we have this week for the TM Up podcast. I want to thank you guys all for joining us. Be sure to follow along on all of our social media platforms throughout the week for some fun NBA content. Thank you guys all for listening. We'll be sure to catch you guys next time.